Hello, horse lovers, Disney fans, and history lovers. This is so rare that I talk about something that applies to all three of my current YouTube channels. And originally, I was hesitant to talk about the movie Miracle of the White Stallions. This movie is about one of the extremely few times when the Allies and the German army actually worked together during World War II. Now, you aren't going to find this movie on Disney Plus for a good reason. If you have just heard a little bit about this, you might think this is something that portrays Nazis in a good light. And I can't believe the idea of Nazis being good is even something debated. Anyone who holds that philosophy is clearly not good. But this isn't about people who held those beliefs. Colonel Prochaski, who was head of the Spanish riding school in Vienna, was definitely not of their beliefs. He was an Austrian, he wasn't even German, and basically pressed to doing what he had to do. He didn't do anything actively fighting against the Allies, had no part in that. He was simply trying to run the Spanish riding school as best he could at that time. And I'm going to talk more about him shortly, but let's start with how the movie opens. It opens with giving some history of the Lipizzaner breed, or Lipizzan. Either way is correct. They come from the town of, originally I should say, come from the town of Lipizzan. So Lipizzan, Lipizzaners both mean coming from that town, so nobody's going to correct anybody based on which term they use for these horses. So I love that this movie gives you a little bit of history right from the start of history of the breed right from the start.
In the alpine country of Austria lies the village of Piber, home of the Lipizzan horses. The Lipizzan breed had its beginning in 1580 during the reign of Maximilian II. And from that time until the end of the empire, the white horses served the crown.
You may be wondering, okay, this riding school is in Vienna, which is of course the capital of Austria. Why is it the Spanish riding school? The movie explains that, as well as giving some further history of the school.
In the autumn of their third year, when the Lipizzaners are turning from dark to white, the finest stallions are selected for the famous Spanish riding school in Vienna. Named for the Spanish origin of the Lipizzan horses, the school was built in 1735, when every court in Europe patronized the art of classical riding. Today, it is the only home of that art in the world. It has survived wars and occupations, crowns and republics. But near the end of the Second World War, it was almost lost.
Now, a little bit about Colonel Prochaski. He was, as I said, he was a colonel in the Austrian army, very dedicated to exceptional riding. He actually competed in the 1936 Olympics and went on to be head of the Spanish riding school in 1939. Things were not going well at the Spanish riding school by this time. Now, a few words about the type of riding they do there. They do dressage, but they do dressage the way no other horse can. The Lipizzans or Lipizzaners can do very special jumps known as the airs above ground. And there's often talk among people who don't know about horse training, who are unfamiliar. They see the type of things these horses do and think these horses gotta be abused. Nothing could be further from the truth. Right from when they're born, the horses learn that, of course, humans are friends, they're kindly treated, they're petted, they're shown, oh, humans are good to be around. but training doesn't even start until they're 4. And this is a very good thing because the skeleton of a horse isn't even fully developed when they're as young as some horses start training. You think these horses who began training at the age of 2, very hard on their bodies. So Lipizzans are spared that. And they are trained very gently, very slowly. And if anyone is ever caught not doing things right at the Spanish riding school, they're out of there. The primary focus is these horses being well cared for. Colonel Pajacki loved these horses more than anything, and he was terrified throughout the war that something was going to happen to them. And he fought hard for the evacuation of these horses from Vienna, which was going to be bombed. Everybody knew that was coming. It hadn't happened yet at the point the movie starts, but everybody's aware it will, and he's fighting to get these horses out of there.
You made decisions that contradict the spirit of orders from the Führer. Vienna is in no danger. Life has to continue as usual here.
You can't honestly
That's
believe...
an order. The Spanish riding school papers. You have a number of riders on leave from the army. They are to be returned to active service immediately.
You want the riding school to continue, and yet you take my staff away from me?
Men are needed at the front.
Colonel Pajacki is played by Robert Taylor in this movie. Very well-known actor, did quite a few really good movies during this era. So, everybody knows, like I said, Vienna's gonna get bombed, and eventually it happens. Thankfully, no person or horse is hurt this time. But it's gonna happen, and everybody knows it. So, he puts in another request to get the horses out of there.
Your request has been denied.
But that was before.
That was this morning. I've been in contact with Berlin.
But why would they deny it? Last month was one thing, even last week, but now...
The Spanish riding school is a symbol of Vienna. Its evacuation might be interpreted by the Viennese as a sign that their situation is regarded as hopeless, that the city is doomed.
It's an extravagant sacrifice, General Stryker, and I don't believe the Viennese people can be so easily fooled.
I have actually heard a theory thrown around that Hitler wanted the Spanish riding school destroyed because it is such a symbol of Austria. And of course, Austria was supposed to be part of Germany now. And this idea is actually put forward in the movie. It's just tossed out there, but it doesn't seem all that unlikely that, yeah, the Nazis actually wanted this school to be destroyed.
Forget my temper. The school mayors were moved to Czechoslovakia for reasons I never understood. I can't predict what will happen to them there. Now air raids endanger my stallions, and I'm refused permission to save them. It's as if the end of the Spanish riding school had been deliberately planned and is being carried out on some secret schedule from higher headquarters.
The mayors he's referring to were taken to what was then Czechoslovakia, what is now the Czech Republic, to be part of a breeding program to breed the ideal warhorse. Now, interesting thing about Lipizzan or mares, they are never ridden in competition. The only job of the mares is to raise the babies and to basically just have fun living in the field otherwise. They got a pretty easy life. So, he's got a few of the stallions left at the riding school, and he knows he's got to get them out of there. Now, General Telheim, who is a fictional character used in this movie, comes up with a creative way to approve orders to get them out of there.
Some time ago, I gave you orders to take certain art treasures out of the school to safety. Those orders have not been rescinded.
Can you help me with transportation?
Where would you like to take these treasures?
To St. Martin in the Innkreis. There's plenty of stable space in the castle there. Perfect for storing art treasures.
Regular cars are scarce, but I see what I can do.
After a dangerous journey, they finally make it to safety. And St. Martin's isn't just a refuge for the horses, it becomes a sanctuary for people too. One of the very few spots in the war where people can have some semblance of a normal life.
During the last weeks of the war, the castle of St. Martin was a refuge for hundreds of homeless, frightened people, and for the Spanish riding school of Vienna. The days were long with waiting.
It's not all that long after they arrive when they have a very welcome visitor in General Telheim. Now, as I said before, Telheim is a fictional character, but you do see in him what the Austrians had to be feeling during this. We see that he is absolutely not supporting what's going on. He loves music, and one of the more heart-tugging moments in the movie is when he plays music that the Nazis have actually outlawed.
What can happen to a country that causes it to outlaw the genius of a great composer? What happens to a people that they permit themselves to be so denied?
Perhaps you're being too hard on them, General. It doesn't happen overnight, this condition. It develops slowly and so subtly that people don't realize what's being done.
Yeah. And suddenly it's all there. And then it's too late to fight back.
Unfortunately, General Telheim isn't just there for a friendly visit, although he wishes it was. He has some very bad news that puts the future of all of the Lipizzaners at risk.
The Hungarian riding school fled Budapest, but was captured by the Russians on the outskirts of Vienna.
The outskirts?
Fall of Vienna is imminent. It may have happened since I left.
What happened to Haslinsky and his horses, do you know?
He and his stuff were taken prisoners of war. They were in uniform, and the horses were destroyed.
At this point, it's a question of, do the Americans get to St. Martin first, or do the Russians? The Americans arrive first, and Colonel Pajaski hopes, okay, let's see if maybe we can get under their protection. At first, it doesn't look like...
General. Sir, the Spanish riding school is worth saving, not just for Austria, but for the world. We need your protection.
I'm sorry, Podolsky.
I don't believe we can survive without it. We have 70 stallions here to care for, to feed and shelter and defend. Our mares have been removed to Hostau in Czechoslovakia. If they're not returned to us, the breed will die.
He's advised, put on a show for General Patton. Patton was a well-known horse lover. He competed himself in the Olympics. If anybody's going to be willing to help save these horses, Patton is. Now, putting on a show is not going to be easy. The horses have not been able to be trained the way they normally would have, even though they've been given at least some exercise. A lot of the people who would have been there to help aren't there. So this is going to be difficult. And yet they managed to pull it off. They put on a show. Because they have to convince Patton that these horses are worth saving, and to lose them would be a major tragedy. Now, at this point, the performance is something you might have seen if you watched the Olympics. really good dressage all do these kind of moves. What sets the Lipizzaners apart is the areas above ground that are about to come next.
I never seen a horse do that before.
Patton is convinced that these horses are worth it. We gotta do something to save them. Now, officially, they're not going to do anything. But there are a bunch of prisoners of war by Hostile, and Patton wants to get them back as well. So they contact one of the German officers, and they say, "Will you surrender to us, or do you want to wait for the Russians to come by?"
I understand you have a large number of Allied prisoners in Hostile.
Yes, sir. Mostly French and English.
Well, I'm interested in liberating those prisoners. I wonder if you and I couldn't make ourselves a little deal.
A deal, Colonel?
I'm assuming your men would rather surrender to us than to the Russians. My proposition is very simple. If your garrison will surrender peaceably, we will move into Hostile, and the Russians will have no chance to call on you.
You will bring us out of Czechoslovakia?
As American prisoners of war.
With our wives, our possessions.
Of course, he agrees. Now, officially, the mission was to save the POWs. Those who were involved in rescuing the horses were told, if you get caught by anybody, if there's any problems, you guys did this on your own, you had no authority, we know nothing about this. Thankfully, the mission was a success. Not only were the Lipizzaners saved, but so were a lot of other horses, including a whole bunch of valuable Arabians. So a very happy day for horse lovers.
Someone?
They had trouble at the border. Maybe there's trouble at Ostar as well.
I read you, cowboy. Over. Roger. Out. Tell the Stallions I said for them to just sit tight. Their girlfriends are on the way.
If you're a fan of classic television, you'll recognize that Colonel Podjaski's friend Otto is played by Eddie Albert, who of course was famous for Green Acres. This operation to save the Lipizzaners and the other horses was known as Operation Cowboy. It wasn't until 10 years later that they were able to return to Austria, to the Spanish riding school in Austria rather in Vienna. And that day, of course, was a huge celebration.
For 10 long years, the Spanish riding school remained in exile. Then in 1955, occupation forces left Austria. And on the 220th anniversary of the riding hall, the white horses performed once more in Vienna.
Colonel Podjaski was still the head of the riding school until 1965, and he passed away in 1973, 10 years after the making of this movie. Patton is, of course, a very controversial figure, and I'm including a link to a review my sister Rue did of the movie Patton starring George C. Scott. Some of the Lipizzaners were actually brought to America by Patton, and I actually know one of their descendants. He belongs to a friend of mine. He's half Lipizzan, but he still has the look of the breed. And the moves that you saw the horses doing in this movie, like I said before, people will say, oh, they must have been abused to do those kind of steps. No. I've seen him do those kind of steps just for fun. And the horses who aren't trained yet at the Spanish riding school, who are still just playing out in the field, they'll do those kind of steps too, just because that's what they do. And I thought you might like to see a picture of him. His name was Borgil, but we all just call him Borgie. Borgie is quite the character and a very sweet horse, and it's amazing to think that he's alive because of these events. Had Operation Cowboy never happened, had Colonel Bajeski not gotten General Patton involved, this whole breed would have gone extinct. Instead, you can see them today in Vienna if you get to go, and they do occasionally tour and give performances. If you ever get the chance to see them on tour, I highly recommend it. So, that is the miracle of the White Stallions, and it truly is a miracle that they exist. The movie is very hard to find, very expensive to buy the DVD of. However, it does exist on YouTube, so I'm also including the link to that. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and until next time, remember the magic and take care.